Today's presenters are Lucidworks Director of Consulting Services, Al Cole, and Lucidworks co-founder and Solr committer, Eric Hatcher. I'll now hand it over to Al to get started. Thanks for joining us today, Al.
Thanks, Aaliyah, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining Eric and I for this webinar. Have a short agenda for you today. We're going to talk about the e-commerce search use case, which is an interesting use case, and how search relevancy is typically dealt with within an e-commerce scenario. Then I'll introduce the Lucidworks Rules Editor and provide an overview of the UI, where I'll walk through the basic lifecycle operations for creating, updating, and deleting a rule. We'll then get into some of the rule terminology that we use for the rules that we create with the Rules Editor, which will cover rule types and triggers and some of the scenarios that you can follow to build some interesting rules to support your product promotions. I'll then transition to a demonstration of the features, give you an interactive demo of the Lucidworks Rules Editor, and that'll be followed by Eric, who will then take over the presentation and take us under the hood with kind of a detailed implementation discussion of how we design the rules and the mechanics behind them, and also some ways that you might be able to extend what we've started here for the Rules Editor and build upon it yourself. Finally, we'll close out with question and answers for the time remaining, and both Eric and I will do our best to answer any questions you might have following the presentation. So first, I'd like to talk about the e-commerce use case and why it's so interesting. In e-commerce, users are looking for a personalized shopping experience, and search is an accelerator to them finding the products they're interested in. That experience should include dynamic navigation and dedicated landing pages with promotions for things like gift ideas, which would be applicable here as we approach the holiday season. Internally, your merchandising team needs real-time access to analytics dashboards to see sales trends going on with your customers as they engage your website and they're going through transactions of purchasing the products. Supporting all this needs to be a robust search platform that provides smart access APIs, handles indexing and data acquisition from content sources such as product catalogs, promotional campaigns, and user history events like add to cart or product reviews and checkout transactions. All of that functionality is what Fusion is capable of providing, and that is what the Rules Editor is based on and what we'll be showing you throughout this webinar. All of this is designed with the goal of increasing conversions with a tailored shopping experience managed by merchandising experts. And throughout this process, we're really focusing on supporting and serving those merchandising experts to give them tools in order to build rules when needed to promote your products and to enhance the search experience overall. So what is relevancy? Relevancy is connecting customers to the products that they're interested in. It's about putting the most relevant information at the top of your search results. So ways that can be achieved, and typically what I see in e-commerce configurations are utilizing, of course, search terms, because when you think about e-commerce, the majority of the conversions that happen will start with the search box. So your ability to take those search terms and accurately identify your products by brand or by manufacturer becomes a key importance. And certainly Fusion and Solr out of the box offer a number of capabilities to isolate your products by those search terms. In addition to that, in e-commerce configurations, I see the utilization of phrase matching, where you identify specific multi-term components and ultimately identify them as phrases and associate them with particular product fields in your index. And by boosting on, let's say, brand names or manufacturer names and those types of things, you can enhance the relevancy of your search experience, and it's something that's typically employed by many of our e-commerce customers. Utilizing likes or product reviews as part of your relevancy solution is also another key best practice that we see, so that you're able to boost particular products that have received good reviews from your user community on your websites. Accounting for product launches and the freshness of those products in terms of their date being entered into your catalog, and essentially boosting based on that freshness is another tactic that we see. So customers are seeing those new products when they arrive, and that they're showing up higher in your relevancy lists when those search results are presented. Supporting spell checking is another key best practice, where you are able to, through the enablement of search components in Fusion and Solr, to determine whether a user has incorrectly spelled a particular product term, and be able to, at that point, either suggest an alternate query, or if you're detecting that you have 0 results coming back, to automatically submit the alternate query so that you're able to provide some products that actually match up against the terms that they provided. Auto-suggestions is another technique that we use, and that's all about giving your users a list of matching possibilities as they begin typing their search terms. That is a great accelerator to bring them quickly to the products that you want them to ultimately utilize or purchase or provide information about. And then the last thing I wanted to highlight with respect to search relevancy is the use of signals and machine learning in general. And this particular approach is highly beneficial because it essentially allows that search platform to work on your behalf, to take external events such as the add to cart event or the checkout event, and be able to feed them back into the search index and aggregate them, maybe based on user sessions and the queries and maybe the catalog IDs that those queries actually executed against, and then apply a weight to them and allow that weight to factor into ongoing queries against those products, and you get an automatic boosting that takes place. So when you bring all of these approaches together, you can have a nice, highly relevant experience. Now, having talked about these, all of these contribute to a successful e-commerce search experience. However, there are times where you may need greater precision in controlling that search experience, and that's where business rules come in. Business rules are a complementary relevancy tool that can enable a merchandising expert to more precisely control the search experience. So by that, I mean giving them the tools from which to decide what products should be promoted in certain scenarios. Now, it's not a replacement for that previous slide where I talked about search relevancy and the fact that much of that can be controlled through configuration and the inclusion of external events through signals. But there are times, especially in an e-commerce scenario, where a merchandiser should get involved to help with promoting products. And in those exceptions, you need to provide an application to help them build those rules, and that's exactly why we created the Lucidworks Rules Editor. The Rules Editor is an application that allows a merchandiser to define rules and to manage the entire life cycle of them. And in the case of the Lucidworks Rules Editor, it takes into account that these rules over time can accumulate. So it has a rich interface to support rules at scale and the ability to maintain them over time. So to introduce the Rules Editor, this is the base interface, and as you can see here, it's a grid presentation because there's a lot of rich metadata information associated with a rule, so we thought a grid would be the easiest way for the merchandiser to consume the information. The interface is centered around search because the way we actually model the rules is they're just search documents. They're stored in a search index, and we maintain the entire life cycle of those documents in what we call a sidecar collection, which Eric will drill down when he has a chance to talk about under the hood. So in working with the Rules Editor, you have the ability to search by keywords and to isolate your rules based on those keywords. You can apply filters, which are shown on the left as the faceting mechanism. You get standard paging that you would expect in a search experience. We also have provided bulk actions to allow batch updates to your rules. So if you are maintaining a large set, and let's say that you wanted to disable a collection of them, you can just quickly select each of those individual rules and then apply a bulk action which would, let's say, disable those rules for the time being. The last thing I want to highlight is the fact that the Lucidworks Rules Editor is built on Lucidworks View. That is our open source search application that is freely available to the public and is already configured to work out of the box with Fusion. We've essentially taken this base, which is a search application kind of geared towards your generic search, and we've customized it so that it gives us this presentation and manages the life cycle as we need. So the key point here is our rules editor is also available as an open source application. So if your team is interested in embracing rules and let's say you wanted to extend and customize it, you're free to download the software and to go about making those kinds of changes and essentially making the rules editor your own. Now, having said that, we are partnering with a number of our customers to continue to enhance this application so that it incorporates the majority of the use cases that are important to our e-commerce customers. So we're also here to work with you to do this enhancement process if you'd like to engage us. Quickly, talking about some of the mechanics of how a rule can get added, it's a simple 1, 2, 3 step process. You start out by specifying your general information about the rule, which would cover the rule type, the name of the rule, and maybe something very descriptive about why you created the rule in the first place, knowing that this rule could be around for a period of time. Then you can define a number of different triggers, which could be date ranges, keywords, field values that you might match with a filter query, or tags, which are user-defined labels. All of these I'm going to expand on in just the next slide or two. And then finally, the third step is providing the values associated with the rule type that you specified. In this particular example, we've got a filter list, and so we're providing product identifiers as part of the values for this particular rule itself. This slide just shows you how easy it is to edit a rule with the rule editor. You can do that editing within the grid itself. You just simply hit the pencil edit icon, and you then have in-grid editing of your rule. So this is a nice accelerator for someone who's maintaining rules to quickly make a change and then save it and then go and do some testing to see if they got the outcome they were looking for when they're working with the rules. The list of rule types are summarized here. We have a filter list, which is focused on merchandising a specific product list. So when you think of a filter list, if I go back to that example I gave earlier of gift ideas, so if someone was to enter in gift ideas, it's highly unlikely you're going to have a relevant match of all the products that you might want to promote as a merchandiser. So what you can do with a filter list is you can match on that keyword, and then you can give a list as long as you'd like of products that you think would be relevant, let's say as we approach the holiday season, and you as a merchandiser are trying to give the consumer some ideas on potential gifts, those kinds of things. So a filter list is going to override that search experience and just promote a fixed number of products that you're interested in showing. A boost list contrasts with that in that it will take a product list, but it will essentially boost those at the top of the results. You'll still get that natural relevancy of the search engine, but the boosting will take place in such a way that the products that you're promoting are up near the top, and therefore you have an opportunity to promote those products as a result of whatever query they fired. The block list is used to prevent product displays. And this rule was actually enhanced when we heard a use case from our customer that talked about the fact that there are periods where you are aware of a new product being introduced into the market, and let's say that product at some point in the future. So you as an e-commerce site want to set up all the pages and all the material so that you're ready for that day of launch, but you need to ensure that those are not visible out to your public consumers until that date arrives. So you could create a block list which would block those products, and you can put a date range in there so that at the time that that date is passed, that those then would be able to be seen by the general public as part of the product launch. You also have redirect and banner rule types, which cover landing pages and messages, like perhaps you want to have a Good Friday promotion and you'd like to have that as some type of a banner message. That rule is flexible to do that. The final rule type is a set params rule type, and for the Fusion users out there that are accustomed to that stage and utilizing it, it follows the same philosophy. It's really the Swiss Army knife of defining a rule where you can leverage any of the Solr query parameters and incorporate them into your rule, and then with the triggers, just have it, either trigger on keyword, dates, whatever, and be able to fire a query as detailed and sophisticated as you need with the full features of Solr. Rule triggers, there are 4 of them. You've got keyword, where you can provide one or more search terms to match against. There is a matching criteria, and I just want to let those that are on the call right now know that I'll be demonstrating different matching criteria, but the UI, the editor itself, doesn't expose the selection of the criteria. So that can be done through just adding the Solr document accordingly, but we will have very, very soon an update to the editor where this will be possible to specify your criteria as part of the editor UI. You can also have a trigger based on date range, which is a start date and end date, so that if you had a promotion that kicked off on Black Friday, you could set the time frames accordingly and the rules will fire accordingly. A field value will trigger on a filter query where you've got a name value pair, and so if it sees that as part of the incoming query, that can be a way to filter the results. I typically will use this for category IDs. And then the last one's tags, and tags are user-defined labels. Think of them as grouping mechanisms where you can tag your rules, and the way I see our customers leveraging this is they'll often have, let's say, production tags for rules that are visible and executing in production, but they might have tags for test, which means that they should only be fired in a test environment. And so when you're firing a rule, you can specify which tags you want to be applicable, and then the rule processing engine will respond accordingly. I did want to highlight the fact that we do use the Fusion query pipelines, which Eric will get to in just a few minutes. And the key point on the query pipeline and why it's beneficial to the search experience is because we believe rules should be used as that exception case, and in that allow the rest of the processing engine to do its normal type of relevancy boosting for you. And one area that we obviously advocate, because Fusion does a great job managing signals, is the incorporation of signaling aggregations and roll-ups into your search experience. So here's an example where we've got rules complemented by signals in the same pipeline. So you get the best of both worlds. You can leverage any of the existing stages that Fusion supports that would enhance your query, such as signals, and you also get the signal processing that you can you get the rule processing that you can incorporate into the pipeline, and you're able to define those rules in the editor itself. Almost ready for the demonstration, and before I get started, I just wanted to highlight that product items that are shown in the demonstration were derived from the Best Buy developer portal, and that the examples are going to filter, boost, and block products in the Best Buy catalog. And just a disclaimer, I am not a merchandising specialist, so most of the examples I put together are just meant to visually show you what's possible with the rules themselves. So let's get to a rules demonstration. Okay, so this is the rules editor, and as I showed before, it's a grid display. You've got a search box here up on the left, and you also have columns that essentially delineate the different areas of the rule information that we capture. So we essentially allow you to select with a column here, determine whether a rule is enabled or not. You see the green indicating that it's active, and you see the gray indicating that it's not active. It's a simple color coding, but visually it's easy for you to understand whether a rule is active or not. Then you've got typing information and any of the rule values that might be applicable. Here we've got redirects, we've got product IDs, general information about the rule name and any description you might have. We've got the trigger information here in this column, and then dates related to when it was created or edited upon. And what I want to highlight also, which is happening in the background, is you should know that the Rules Editor does track all lifecycle changes to a rule and the identity of who actually applied that change as a signal. So what we do is, as you make changes in the Rules Editor, and let's say you're updating, adding, or deleting, we're sending signals into Fusion into the signals collection, so you are able to fully audit any change that occurs against the rules over its life cycle. Expanding on what you can do here, you can select a number of rules, and this gets to the bulk operations, and you have the ability to enable, disable, apply tags across that batch. All of that functionality is available to you. You can select all or none of these rules. You can filter on any of these rules based on the different types that are specified, or their statuses, or their tags. Since it is a search display, we are doing paging with the results. I've got a couple of pages of rules here just for demonstration purposes. And if I was to search for something like great movies, I can do that, and it's going to match those search terms against any of the information that's part of the general fields of the rule itself. To reset any of the search criteria, you just bring up the filter dialog, and you can just press reset and reset the entire search experience to where you were. So let me get started with adding a rule, show you how straightforward it is to do so. I'm going to choose a redirect rule, and I am just going to call it help information, and a description. This is a test rule. We'll add a trigger, and it's going to be a keyword trigger, and I'm just going to say key on help, and we're going to redirect when that fires to a help page. So that's all there is to it. 1, 2, 3, add a rule. You'll see the rule is here. Now if we go to Fusion, and this is the main Fusion interface, and I have the Best Buy collection with about 1.2 million documents. If I select that, and then I choose a query pipeline which is set up to use rules, which the Best Buy rules is, I can then take that and type in the term help. And you'll see here the landing page shows up and fires as you would expect. So it triggers on the keyword, and it's very straightforward. Now to update a rule, all I do is hit the edit icon, and then I can go in, and let's say I want to change this to support. I simply save this rule, go back, fire my query. You see the landing page has changed, and now it recognizes support. So it's that straightforward to add a rule and to update a rule. And we're going to get into the different rule types in just a moment, but I did want to illustrate how straightforward it is to define a rule. The last thing in the life cycle of a rule would be the deleting of the rule. So I can delete the rule by simply pressing X. I get a confirmation dialog, and then I hit OK. And as I alluded to before, that event has been saved as a signal. So you can audit and understand that a particular rule was created, was updated, and was deleted, and you have all the time-related information as well. So let's expand on this a little bit, and let's talk about some different rules, such as a filter list. So I am going to search for kitchen ideas, and we're going to take a look at this rule. Essentially, this is a filter list rule which is going to display 7 different products. So with kitchen ideas, I can go here, type in kitchen ideas, and you'll see I've got 7 results. These are the 7 products that I've got triggered on a particular filter list, and it's as straightforward as you saw there in terms of how you would define that rule. If I was to do this in our Best Buy search app, which is just more visual than what I'm showing in Fusion, I can apply kitchen ideas, and so I don't have the rules pipeline, which is why it didn't trigger. If I select the rules pipeline and I close this, you'll see that we have 7 products that were part of that display. So that rule fires both in an external search app and it fires internally in Fusion, which is where I'll sometimes spend my time because, as you'll see in just a moment, there are a number of advantages in comparing results within Fusion. So let's look at some additional rule types. I'm just going to cancel this edit. I'm going to reset, and we're going to look for customer service. So with customer service, you can see that this is pointing to the Best Buy customer service site. What I'm going to do is fire customer service. You'll see the landing page fires here. Now I want to show you the difference in matching types for keywords. Right now we have exact. So if I say customer service help, I lose the matching of the rule because we're only set up to see those terms and only those terms. Now the reason I'm sharing this example with you is because I have an alternate example which is going to show you how you can do a contains, which will allow you to match different terms around the keyword that you're triggering. So we'll do another example, this time focused on warranties, and I'll do a search here. And we are just going to fire the Best Buy warranties with that keyword. So I am going to fire that here. You'll see a redirect to the warranties and manufacturer contacts. But I'm also able to say product warranties and still fire the rule. Or I can say manufacturer warranties and still fire the rules. So that's an illustration of a match type of contains. Now let me move on to another example, which will show you a boost list. So I'm going to go back to the Rules Editor. I'm going to reset. We're going to look for a boost around Maytag refrigerators. And essentially we're going to be boosting 3 product IDs. And if you want to see what those products look like, it's an easy thing to just jump over to the search by search app and visually see it. So I'm essentially doing a search which is constrained to the product IDs of these 3 products. So when Maytag refrigerator is entered in, we are going to boost these 3 products to the top so that we can promote them as part of our search experience. So to do that, I can type in Maytag refrigerator, but to make this a little easier to see, I can use a feature where we can compare pipelines, and I'm going to use a default pipeline which doesn't have any rule firing going on. And here you can clearly see that the 3 inside the rules pipeline are boosting to the top. So it clearly illustrates with this color coding that the rule has fired, and in fact we've got 3 documents that exist here but not in a pipeline that doesn't have rules firing. So that's an example of that particular rule firing, and you can do the same thing here when you fire Maytag refrigerator and get those promoted at the top, the 3 stainless steel, and then the rest of the products themselves. Now we're going to look at a block list rule, which I will trigger over here. We're going to reset our query. We're going to key on a brand called Bosch, and we're going to work with the date trigger here. So you're going to notice we've got a date trigger, and if you can't see the timestamp, I can tell you that this is set up for next week. So this rule is set up to fire the 14th through the 18th of next week, and it fires on the Bosch keyword. That's all this rule is doing, and it's blocking 4 particular products from being shown. So if I go here and use the query pipelines, this is an easy way to illustrate this. You'll notice when I fire this that we get identical results back in the listing, which essentially says that the rule didn't fire. And that's because we're not within the time frame it was designed for in the trigger. So let's change that now and put it within this current week, November 7th through the 11th. And then save this rule, refire it here, and now you'll see that the rule the rule not firing, you have the 4 documents here shown, and with the rule firing, they're not listed on the left side. And that was just simply changing the dates around starting and ending for that particular example. The next one I'm going to show you is a set params example. So I am going to come over here and I will reset. And we're going to use the filtering mechanism. We're going to select set params. I have a rule here and just showing you visually. So this rule is about firing based on a catalog ID. It's the AB catalog 9000 something. But ultimately what we're trying to do is when this catalog ID matches up, we want to control the facet list that is displayed based on this category ID. That's what this rule is about. So if I go and I use the Best Buy search app, which will make this a visual example, I can go in, first clear this out, and then I can add a parameter. In this case, I've got a filter query which specifies category IDs and the catalog number that the category number that we're talking about. So I can save that configuration, and you'll notice there's no facets in this display. When I fire this, you'll see the facets are actually being displayed as part of the results. If I was to clear this out and then fire the query again, the facets are gone. So this rule is firing, and it's based on those facet rules, and that's one of the more interesting ways that you can leverage set params to control the search experience itself. So now let me focus on one more rule type, and this one is around the tags themselves. So we're going to focus on tag triggers. So I'm going to reset the query. I'm going to search for great movies. And here you're going to see that we've got 4 rules, each of them tagged differently. We've got one tag for mobile, one tag for production, desktop, and test. And I'm going to go through the Best Buy interface and exercise each of those just to show you how those particular rules might fire. Again, I'm going to leverage a configuration option that we have in our search app, which just allows me to specify an additional search parameter. In this case, it's the tags parameter. And I'm going to call out the test tag when I fire this general query. And actually, I need to include great movies as part of the keyword trigger. So if you look here, you're going to see a sorted collection of sci-fi movies that are triggering on both the keyword search terms, great movies, coupled with the tags being set to test. So if I leave great movies there, since all the rules share that, and I change it so that I'm now using a production tag, I'll fire that query, and you'll see your results changed. And here you're looking at action and drama. Again, just giving you an illustration. I don't see how this correlates to test or production as, let's say, tiers, but it proves that the rules are really firing and honoring the tags as they're specified. And then just to round out the remaining 2, I will put in desktop, if I spell it correctly. And I fire that rule, and you'll see we've got all Star Trek movies, which just happened to be the way the product IDs were assigned. And then the final one that I'll show you just uses mobile as a tag. And on the mobile platform, the way this rule is set up, we only care about documentaries. So that rounds out what I wanted to show you for the rules editor and some of the sample rule types. What I'm going to do now is transition back to the presentation. And I am going to hand this over to Eric, who is going to give us a walkthrough of rules under the hood.
All right. Thank you, Al. That was fantastic. Let me kick in sharing of my screen. Okay. Thanks, Al, again. Now I'm going to go through rules under the hood and talk about the what makes this whole thing tick, kind of demystify the rules. So let me go ahead and put the presentation here in full screen. Rules under the hood. So the rules documents, as Al mentioned, are just Solr documents. We have a sidecar collection that corresponds with the main collection. So you could have, if you had multiple main collections, you could have multiple rules collections, or you could share them all together. So kind of architecturally, the sidecar collection gets queried during the main collections query pipeline. And so I'm going to drill down into that as well. And I'm just going to show a few slides and then jump into the demos on my end. So the Solr documents in the sidecar collection are queried through a stage called a subquery stage. And that subquery stage is, again, in the, let me see. I think I was being asked to mute my audio. Maybe this is better here. Okay, so we have a query pipeline that makes a subquery to the rules collection. And in that subquery, there's a lot of Solr parameter query techniques that are being used to match the query context. So that can be anything from the date and time to tags to filters to the search terms, and we actually even also have the username in there as a potential trigger as well. Al talked about the tags. The tags are something that make the rules processing quite open-ended in that we can tag rules in very flexible ways. We have the staging and production type tags going on with some customers. We also have a mobile and desktop paradigm for tagging rules as well. So depending on whether the user is searching from a mobile phone or from a desktop device, they will get different parameters or different rules will kick in. Some other things that could be used with the rules could be things like demographics. You could have a rule that filters out content that shouldn't be seen for underage. So you could have an age type thing. And finally, another interesting aspect to tagging rules is A/B testing. You may want to have some boosts that you tag as A, and some boosts for certain fields you tag as B, and then direct traffic to different rules by simply using the tags parameter from your querying front end. And finally, in terms of the rules processing pipeline, there is a stage that executes the rules based off of the type of the rule. So we've made this subquery request. We've found the handful of matching rules. Those matching rules then become executable in that they are run through this stage where it picks off the document and applies the rules based on the type of the rule. So we have the set params that is kind of the Uber rule there that controls the search parameters to the Solr request. We have rules that can do the boost list, block list. We have some that are kind of tinkering ones that we have in there that you see on the screenshot here that Al didn't even put in there. We have a query rewrite and a boost, and it's actually flexible in that you can add a simple piece of code that matches a custom rule type, and you're able to leverage a custom rule type quite easily there. So next up, I want to just kind of drill into the rules in demo fashion here. So this is through Fusion's interface. I can look at the underscore rules, the sidecar collection, as documents, very much like that rules editor. So I can see all of the data that got saved on the rules when they were created through the editor. And then on the production pipeline side of things, this is what the Fusion pipeline looks like. So we have some stages in here. Some of these are for development purposes to be able to set up things like tags and the current date. Al showed adjusting a rule date to make it match. But one of the things that we've got built into the pipeline is the ability to override the current date. So in a simulation UI, which is in progress as well, along with the rule editor, is the ability to set the date into the future and see rules that won't trigger today but may trigger in the future and be able to see that. And also in the pipeline, you have the ability to include and exclude tags. I've got them commented out with just an X at the end of the parameter name. But this allows me to control the current time and the tags that are going to be used in there. Further down the pipeline, I'm not going to go into all the gory details of this, but this is the subquery stage where this is a prepare stage that does things like gets the filters from the query context and puts them into the subquery context so that we can query the rules and match filters. We also get the current date and time in there as well, so that we have that ability to set that live but override it as we did up here. And then on down the line is, again, the subquery stage here, where we take in query context information such as the tags, the current date now, the main query, the filters, into, again, the subquery to the rules sidecar collection. And then the next step is the processing stage. The processing stage takes the rules and executes them. There's basically a for loop over all of the rules that matched, and then a case statement that says for each rule type what to do. So we have the block list that excludes all of list of IDs, and this is Solr level parameters here that take the block list rule that was added in the UI and translates that into the Solr level parameters that happen there. And that's the gist of the processing steps on the rule side of things. Let me just double check with the chat window here and make sure everything is working okay. And some other things I wanted to point out about the rules pipeline stages and so on is it's very straightforward to see this stuff in action. This is a query against the product here where we can see Maytag refrigerator is one of the queries that Al put in there. And I'm querying the rules pipeline here. And I can introspect what's happening under the covers here by looking at the JSON view. And I'll just collapse off the various pieces of it here and talk about each in turn here. So this response that you get back from Fusion is a full-fledged Solr response. We actually add an extra node in there so that we put some interesting information into the request along with it. We put the actual subquery results so we can see all of the rules that triggered, and it internally is its own Solr response in here. So it's very easy to debug the rules and see which ones got fired and their actual effect on the Solr query. So for example, this Maytag refrigerator, we can see the effect that thing is going to have on the where it got the boost query here. So this is from the Rules Editor UI all the way down to Solr parameters where we're boosting particular parameters. So we can see that in action straight away that way. And further on kind of the introspection side of things, one thing I like to do is enable with this little gear icon here, display query URL. And when you do that, you get this URL here that you can click on, and that takes you to the data side of the pipeline and gives you the JSON response in this case. And I can see the rule that fired just like we were looking at in the Fusion JSON view too. But now I'm looking at what my application is going to see when rules fire. I think that's about all I have in terms of the demos. We've done some things, and I'll just kind of follow up with a few random things here from my tabs. We've done some work with different types of user interfaces for rules. such that we have a modified version of that Best Buy search UI that Al showed, which is this one here, where we've augmented it to show the rules metadata. We've made it so it shows the banners and the landing pages. If we happen to have one down here, it would show the landing pages. So we're doing some work on the simulation side of things. This rules editor itself, because it's built on Lucidworks View, actually has a simulation link here. And again, it's still kind of a work in progress, but the same sort of thing where you see the search results and being able to see the effect of rules while you're in here. So these are the refrigerators that got boosted up from the rule that Al defined. We're going to put some date picker in here to allow you to effectively fast forward time and see when rules in the future get triggered, that sort of thing, and be able to turn on and off rules. And so you can compare and contrast. Al did a nice job of showing the compare view in here, where you can pick the different pipelines and see side by side. You know, we're just going to keep building upon that sort of thing so we can simulate the rules and see what's going on with that. On that note, I'll pause for a moment and see what kind of feedback that I'm getting from Aaliyah as well as the attendees here.
Hey, Eric.
Looking through, yeah.
Yep, we can go ahead and start the Q&A portion if you're ready. I don't know if you had anything else to kind of conclude.
That's all the actual materials. I mean, we do have some resources that we're going to send out after the webinar and point you to where our open source repository is with all of this code and all the setup here. Okay, so I can just look at the chat window here and pick off a question here. Is it possible to trigger a negative trigger when a condition is not met? I think I'll have to ponder that exact case, but certainly the sidecar collection query to the rules collection is flexible in that I can go to the pipeline and go to this piece here and tailor what the query is that happens to the sidecar collection. Now, there's a lot of kind of Solr query parser magic or voodoo that's going on in here to do the various types of matching that Al mentioned. We've got the contains, the text, and the keywords matching in there. So we've got different queries that do that sort of thing. We filter rules based on the FQs that have come in. We filter rules based off of the username and time and tags, and you can exclude by tags. So we have all of those types of things in there. And this is flexible in that if there was a way to match the rule that you wanted to match, you could do so in here as well.
And Aaliyah, if you don't mind, I'd like to just maybe talk a bit about the rules roadmap, just for a couple of minutes, about where we're heading with the rules editor itself. Oh, great. So we have the slide up here. Essentially, with the roadmap, we're going to be exposing the keyword trigger matching that Eric spoke of. So today you can update a document. Again, it's just a Solr document, and that's all a rule is. So it's easy to update and override the exact matching with, let's say, something like contains. So we're going to expose that feature in the UI so that the merchandiser can easily make that selection for themselves on a per rule basis. As Eric mentioned, we are in progress with the rules simulation UI. So the plan is to provide a robust simulation UI that visually shows you which rules are firing and any applicable tags that are involved, and give you the ability to interactively enable or disable those rules to see how it might be reflected in the search experience. There will be support for field value selection from a combo box. So you saw that you had to be explicit about putting the product IDs into the rules. We will front-end that with a combo box that'll just be tied to a query to the fields that you're choosing to simplify that selection itself. And then the last thing I want to highlight is the support of business rules with Fusion is something that we're planning for long-term in the core product. So we're going to be incorporating the ability to manage rules as part of the core Fusion platform. So what we have now is an opportunity to work with our customers through the rules editor that we're showing to get some great feedback and to kind of build out that core feature set that our customers see as being valuable. And then once that feature set is understood and proven out, those features will be incorporated into the core Fusion platform and available as a core capability within a query pipeline. So that's it for the roadmap. Aliyah, I think we can go back to questions.
Yep, we can go ahead and ask the questions, and then whoever feels like they want to answer, Al or Eric, go ahead. We've got a list going as well, Eric, that we pulled from the chat.
Okay.
So the next question I have on the list is, can the rules editor be used for things other than e-commerce?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're focusing on e-commerce because that use case in the areas of promoting products, those kinds of things, there's clearly value there. But I could envision a rule in enterprise search, for example, where your company might have, let's say it's holiday schedules. I know that's a very simple one, but there's a document out there that just lays out for the calendar year what the holidays are. And you'd like to find that document very simply with holiday schedule and have it just show up and maybe be time sensitive so that, if you're asking in 2016, you're matching to that particular document. So you could boost it, for example. So absolutely, in an enterprise search use case which comes to mind, I could easily see where rules could be potentially utilized. But we do want to emphasize from a best practice perspective that we do feel rules should be the exception. We think that there's a number of tools, and I touched on them with the relevancy drivers, where a lot of these relevancy challenges can be automated through the search platform itself. And so let it work for you, and then you use rules to handle the exception would be the best practice.
Yeah, I have a lot of kind of philosophical thoughts on that topic myself, and I think the rules has a lot of potential in a lot of domains, and I'm just going to give one example here in sharing my screen here where suppose we want, and Al did a great example there, if someone searches for filters down to a particular category that we can control which facets are in the request to Solr, so we can control which facets are displayed, right? Well, one of the things that you can't do with Solr response per se without totally rearranging the response format is rearrange what order the facets come back in. And it's a big deal in e-commerce, but maybe in other domains as well, where you want, based off of some context of the query, control what order the facets display, right? Or even maybe what color you use for the background of your page or something like that, right? So some UI-specific type of thing. So one of the things you could do with rules is, I'm going to make a rule that keys off of that same keyword there, Maytag refrigerator, and I can say that I want, date range field and category field as my facet order is what I put in here. I know it's a little small in there, but basically I just made up my own parameter name here and gave it my own value here, right? So I can now add a rule that is for setting parameters based off of that keyword. So now I've got two rules that key off of Maytag refrigerator. One is a boost list for these refrigerators, and another one is to change the facet order. Right, so now if I'm over here and I search for, let me just do it data-wise here, and I search for Q equals Maytag refrigerator, I got two rules that fired right now. One of them is Al's rule here that boosts those 3 product IDs, and another rule is a rule that set my facet order to some custom value that I put here, and now what I get fed back into my application, and let me just kind of zoom down to here, is I got this value back in my client. So now my search UI could key off of this and rearrange which ones it displayed. Now it didn't change the facets that came back in the response. It didn't reorder those. And in fact, it can't really to, again, maintain Solr response port compatibility. But you can do something like this. So you can feed metadata based off of keyword matches or other tags or query context type sensitivity back to your application. It doesn't necessarily have to affect relevancy. It doesn't necessarily have to boost or block anything, but you're feeding back a key value pair. So, okay. And
okay, are you ready for the next question?
Yeah.
Great. So this may match up with what you have there. I have one other one. Oh no, we've got it. Can we use a save and promote option when updating a rule?
So would a save and promote, I'm going to speculate the save and promote would refer to maybe transitioning that rule from a test to a production state. So tags would be a way to potentially do that if you were testing on let's say the production tier, you had some test rules that you wanted to exercise. You could leverage the tags facility to initially introduce those rules as test, exercise them accordingly, and then you could use the batch updating facility that I illustrated before, the bulk action, and you could reapply the tags that were test to production once you validated them. Another way to approach this is if you're talking about moving a configuration from, let's say, with Fusion from the test to the production tier, there you would need to extract the configuration, which is exactly the same as any other Fusion configuration when we talk about a query pipeline, and then you'd promote that up to the production tier. So those are the two ways. You could test at the production tier and use tags to isolate, or you could be in completely different tiers and then just export your configuration changes and promote them up to your production tier.
Thank you. So the last question that we have, and we're coming up on time here anyway, is can we configure more than one trigger for one rule in the rules editor?
I guess I'll field that one, Al. You can attach multiple triggers to a single rule. So I can add keyword trigger, here, and then I can add a filter here. So if somebody selected a particular category, 1, 2, 3, and then and I can add a date trigger and so on there, and as well as the tag one. I can't quite get to it there. But you can add all of these triggers. Now all of these triggers become anded on the query. So they all need to match for that rule to match. So we don't have, that's the level of multiple triggers per rule that we have currently. And we have talked through some design capabilities to represent multiple triggers in a more Boolean or type fashion in there as well. And that happens on a per field type basis. So tags are an or. You can select, you can match multiple tags all at one time. So you can have production A, production B. So you can do A/B testing, but only pick up production ones that are tagged as A, or only production ones that are tagged as B as well. And that's an OR when it becomes enter trigger that way.
Great, thank you. So we are just at the top of the hour and we're out of time. Everyone who registered for this webinar will receive a link to the recording shortly. So also if we didn't have time to answer your question today, someone from the Lucidworks team will get in contact with you. So look out for that note. If you have any questions that you didn't get a chance to ask, you can email us at events@lucidworks.com. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you, Al and Eric, and we hope everyone has a great day.